Все началось. Лайв пошел. Все нормально. Я отключаю микрофон здесь.
Мгм.
Все показывает.
Хорошо, нам надо проверить. Тогда еще будет звук.
Все началось. Лайв пошел. Все нормально. Я отключаю микрофон здесь.
Okay, so we'll just wait a few minutes, a couple of minutes, and I'll start. Okay, so hopefully some people have already joined. In any case, I'll start to make sure that we have plenty of time for some questions in the end. Hopefully, it's not surprising to you that I'm speaking in English. My name is Olga Plieva. Might be a bit confusing, and I'll explain to you why that is. And today I'm here to tell you a little bit about marketing. And specifically, I wanted to share with you some insights, some thinking around the term 360 marketing. It's something that is used very often in the industry, in a lot of different plans, and there's I think some different opinions as to what that is. So today, based on my own experience, my industry expertise, if you want to call it that, I'll share with you what it means, at least to me in my professional life, and hopefully it'll inspire you to think a little bit differently and to construct your plans if you need to in a different way. And I'll share with you a very particular example of something that I worked on myself in the last year. Something that hopefully will inspire you as well, especially if you like beer. So a little bit about that, some slides later. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about myself. And the reason why, with a name like Olga Plieva, I'm speaking English today. Well, first of all, I am Russian. I was born here some time ago, but I left quite early in my youth and went to the United States. On the left-hand side, you see two screen grabs from my LinkedIn profile. So no secrets here. You can find my experience there as well. But basically, I grew up and I lived in the area around Washington, D.C. in the United States. And shortly after high school, I moved to New York and spent my first year of my career in advertising. Before that, I was a student in New York University in the Stern School of Business, and that's how I ended up in New York in the first place. But basically, my first few career years were spent in advertising on Madison Avenue in New York City. And there I learned a lot about communication, handled quite a bit of different types of clients, from FMCG to healthcare, to different things, different projects. But it really helped me to understand how businesses look into advertising and communication in general across different industries. And around that time, getting into my fourth year, I decided to change things up a little bit. And being from Europe, I went to INSEAD, which is a school based in France and Singapore. I received my MBA there, and shortly before graduation, I met the wonderful team of Carlsberg that gave me my new home. Well, actually many homes. If you look to the left side, you can see that I've worked in different countries, mostly in Western Europe, starting from the Western European market. So as an internal consultant on various business development subjects in countries like Bulgaria, Portugal, Croatia, Switzerland, Poland, and France. And after meeting the wonderful team in Switzerland, I spent the next 6 years of my career working there, continuing my role in business development. If you know a little bit about, I don't know, beer in Switzerland, which would be quite interesting, but it's a market that's very much a home market for Carlsberg. So we are a market leader there. And my job was to look beyond beer during my first years in Switzerland to understand how we can grow in different categories, in soft drinks, in energy drinks, water. So it also gave me a nice breadth of experience across the different categories. As my last job there, I transitioned into marketing, taking care of craft and specialities, which is like everywhere a booming segment of beer. It's a great way to also earn money in the beer business, which in many countries becomes more and more commodity, unfortunately, and we see that also happening right now in Eastern Europe as well. So that was my first, let's say, real professional experience within marketing as a function, and we did a lot of great work there to reinvigorate the craft portfolio of Carlsberg, working with smaller breweries. So really a great experience. And now, surprisingly, life does make some strange turns. I'm here in St. Petersburg speaking with you on behalf of Baltika Breweries, which is, of course, a part of Carlsberg. I'm here exactly 1 year, 1st of April. And spending my time taking care of our wonderful brand Baltika, which has transitioned many phases over the last years, and it's a great opportunity to work with a local power brand, as we call them. It's the biggest local power brand in the Carlsberg portfolio. And continue to develop the future of this brand on this market. So basically on the right, you can see the map of where I've worked in my career so far. Of course, the countries just happen to be very big, so it looks very, very huge on the map. But hopefully you also see that I'm not only speaking from the Russian side of the business, but also with an international view in both marketing, business development, and advertising as the three main functions which I've taken care of in my career. So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about Carlsberg in case you're not familiar with it, and particularly about Baltika. Baltika has been a part of Carlsberg for some years now, and its, of course, founding years were in the 1990s. So it's the first beer brand on the market, Baltika brand, and over the last 30 years, it's gone through quite a transformation. In the market that's gotten more and more competitive in the last years. So unlike probably the 90s and the early 2000s, where we enjoyed a lot less competition, these years it's very, very different. We have a lot of licensed brands. We have a lot of import brands that are coming on the market, giving consumers more reason to choose something new. Something different, But in any case, we believe in a bright future of this brand moving forward. We have about 8,600 employees in the company, and we still enjoy a substantial part of the market when it comes to a market share. And even with the brands that are coming onto the market more and more, Baltika can still enjoy quite a big portfolio, which helps us to make sure that we stay competitive in the market itself. So our motto is we are brewing for a better today and tomorrow. And it's a company definitely worth considering if you're looking for a place to start. A lot of friendly, open people. For sure, with even my let's say more international background, I've managed to find quite a nice home amongst my colleagues. So also happy to talk about that. I forgot to mention that if you have any questions, unfortunately I won't be able to answer them live. But if you want to leave a message in the comments box, I'll make sure to return to them after the lecture and give you some feedback. And of course, if you have some questions around the company itself, please feel free to ask that too. Of course, Baltika Breweries is a part of something even bigger, and that is Carlsberg. Carlsberg operates predominantly in Western Europe, Eastern Europe, as well as Asia. And besides that, and that meaning produces the actual products, but has quite a bigger business and wider offices in other countries, like even United States, where we have a licensed business, and Canada as well, for example. So there, our international portfolio is actually quite strong, and we sell our products ourselves through a sales function, and not producing them there. Here you can see the very wide variety of products we have, and here you see mostly beer products, but that's not to say that Carlsberg doesn't do things beyond. In some markets, for example, in Russia as well, we have a very good position in energy drinks, for example. So beyond, let's say, just beer, even though that is our main bread and butter, Carlsberg has a wider beverage portfolio depending on the market in which it's operating. So we operate across 33 countries, and we have a leading position in 25 of those. So again, if there's any specific questions about the company itself, please ask. And also, you can always find me on social networks if you feel like asking something that we don't manage to cover here. But I'm not here to tell you about Carlsberg or Baltika. We're here to talk about something else as well. So today we focus on a topic which is near and dear to me, and it's about 360 marketing. So again, it's a term that's used very broadly and in some cases very misused. So I wanted to start by maybe breaking some myths in terms of, it's always easier maybe to define what something is, but I always like to say what it isn't, so that we also start to think about what it could be. So what is one myth buster of 360 marketing? Well, some people think that it's about being everywhere with the same message at the same time. So plastering the city with the same poster, with the same creative message, and boom, your job is done. You've completely spent all your money. You've done one thing in terms of creative message, and that's it. Well, that's absolutely not what an effective 360 marketing campaign looks like. And I guess the key word here is effective, because that's what we always aim to be when we talk about budgets and what we get in return as far as money. It's not about using all the channels. So 360 sounds like, well, you should then Try to pick all the channels that are available out there, and make sure that your message is seen everywhere. Also not true, as you'll see later on. It's actually almost, I would say, a skill and art to really find the right balance of the channels where you want to be seen, to be the most relevant, and at the right time. And it's also not about a one-time blitz. So a good 360 marketing campaign isn't on air 1 month and then you go dark. And then you come back, I don't know, a year later and do it again. That's absolutely not an effective use of your spend. In fact, you have to really think about 360 marketing as phases. And I'll give you a little bit more insight into at least how we think about those phases, and make sure that each one of those is as strong as the other one, to ensure that we really have a very, very strong message on each of those parts. A good campaign, again, it takes time to build over a period rather than just a one-time blitz. So everything in marketing starts, as we used to say, with the consumer. I think if you're a good marketeer, or if you know anything about marketing, that should be a no-brainer, that should be obvious. That term has changed over time. I'm not going to say it's a recent change, but still, we've thought long and hard about what is really the right aim of the messages you're trying to get across. And I think it's easier or better to have in your head the concept of target audience instead of consumer. And target audience implies who is the person who is meant to see the message that you are sharing with them. And in some cases, it can be the consumer, absolutely. But in some cases, it can be the shopper. And in most cases, depending on the category, those two are not necessarily the same person. So what's the difference between a consumer and shopper? A consumer is someone that consumes, right? It's somebody that takes the product you're selling and is the final user of that product. So normally a consumer has a preconceived notion of the product itself, what they want the product to have, what are the key attributes, what are the things that they will base, or what is the affinity to that product. On the other hand, it's the shopper. Shopper is somebody that chooses the actual product itself. So this, obviously from the word shopping, the shopper is the person at the point of purchase that is purchasing the product for consumption, their own or somebody else's. And it's really the behavior of the person that you can influence at the point of shopping. So on the right-hand side, I have a couple of examples for you. I think they're quite telling. So the first one is, for example, a child and the mother that chooses the products for that child. So you could say the consumer is actually the child. They will be the ones that finally eat, I don't know, a piece of candy, an apple in this case, or a product. But that product is bought by the mother or by the father of the family. So it means that in some cases, it won't make sense for you to target a message towards the child and create your 360 campaign focusing solely on the child. Of course, you want them to ask for something, absolutely. But when it comes to shopping for products, you actually want to make sure that you also have a message at the right place, which is relevant to the shopper. Because in the end, it's the mother who will choose whether she will buy this apple or something else, or whether she will buy this cereal or something else. So that's an important example. On the bottom, you have a man looking at some jewelry. Now, the woman on his right is not his wife. This is a lady, a retailer lady who is selling him the jewelry. So of course, who doesn't like a good, a nice diamond ring? So maybe he is buying it for himself, but more likely he's buying it for his wife or his future wife in this case. And basically, it's him that you want to also target when it comes to final decision making, even though in many cases the woman will be very clear about what she wants, but still it's him that's making the final purchase, and it's him that is giving your company the money. So it's important that he chooses the product that you want him to choose. On the right-hand side, you have a more, let's say, funnier example probably, but cat food, dog food. For sure, they're not shoppers, but they are consumers. And of course, their owners are definitely not, well, maybe in some strange cases, but definitely not the consumers. They are the shoppers. So of course, you want to make sure that in your communication, you're not going after the cats, who will never be making that decision, but you're really going after the owners who will be shopping. So I think this is a very important thing to make sure that you have clear in your head. And it could be, again, you at some point you want the consumer to also be knowledgeable about your product, or you want the shopper to make the right decision at the right time. Make sure that, and that's also part of this 360 idea, to make sure that you have the entire ecosystem of behavior covered by your initiatives. So I don't want to give you too much philosophy. I think the best way to learn, in my experience, has always been by doing. Unfortunately, we can't communicate and workshop together in this case, but I'll try to share with you a live example of a real case that we worked on at Baltika, to really showcase to you what is 360 marketing, what does it look like from a real experience. So I don't know if you like beer. I know I do. So hopefully the case will be interesting to you, just as a function of the product that we're talking about. In this case, it's Baltika 7 Smooth, which is one of our new products launched by Baltika last year. And of course, with the launch of the product, we had to think really hard about how do we want to position it, how do we want to promote it, and how do we make sure that we're very clear about the role this product plays for us, and that we attract the right consumer or shopper into our brand. So let's pretend that it's your product. So what do you do? And let me tell you a little bit more about what it is. Well, Baltika 7 Mягкое, or smooth, as we call it, it has a smooth taste. It has a special filtration, making it very, very smooth on the lips. So it's certainly something that we want to make sure that we tell the consumer or the shopper about, so that when they're choosing their beer, they choose us and tell them about it in a nice, convincing way. It has a 6-month shelf life, and it comes in this really clear, trendy bottle. So we want to make sure that the bottle is always front and center, that people can see how beautiful it is, and we want to talk about it. So as I said, in marketing, everything starts with the consumer. So will we as well. So who do we want to reach? Well, let's call him Ilya. Ilya is a representation of the kind of guy that we want to attract with this product. I'll tell you a little bit more about Ilya, but for us, it's important that, of course, Ilya, well, first of all, that there's many of Ilyas, and we find out that there are, and we try to understand what is the profile of Ilya, so that we can really attract him at the right moment with the right message that we want to attract him with. So, what do we know about Ilya? Well, he's probably a little bit older than some of you watching this. Ilya is about 24 to 35, and for Baltika, that's fantastic. On some of the other brands that we have, our consumer is sometimes a little bit older. So with this cool new trendy beer, we want to attract a slightly younger demographic. So we're really happy to have Ilya know about our product and to try us. We know he's open-minded. So he mostly chooses the product on shelf. So he's not the kind of guy that always drinks the same beer and sticks to the same product day in, day out. He's very open to try something new, which is great for us. Because if he was closed-minded, no matter how much money we would spend on him, he would probably never try our beers. We know that he's not super rich, but he has a little bit of money to spend. So he has some disposable income. So he's not always looking for, deals. He's willing to, if the product convinces him, spend a little bit more and to try something maybe a little bit different, a little bit more interesting than, his everyday beer, which is, again, great for us. We know that he's mostly on digital, which is important because when we talk about media channels, this we'll come back to. But we know that he sometimes watches TV. So TV is important. He's still watching, so we shouldn't forget it. He values his time and his leisure. So on indexes like I prefer to pay for a subscription instead of watching ads, for example, on videos or on live streaming, he prefers to actually pay for that so that he can skip ads. So it's interesting and maybe important for us to consider on which platforms we want to attract him. He lives in urban areas or bigger towns. Okay, great. So we know already geographically where we want to reach him. And he says that he cannot imagine his life without his car. So we know that he is an active driver. So maybe, I don't know, out-of-home advertising, billboards could be something where we can find Ilya during his commute. He likes spending time with his friends. Okay, great. So maybe if we show our product in the context of friends and being together in a group, he can relate and he can choose our beer. And he's skeptical. He doesn't like advertising or he doesn't trust them. So we need to think of a very clever way how we can convince him that our product is for him without making a typical ad and without Baltika just saying, hey, Ilya, try our beer. That won't work for him. And we know he shops for his own beer. So in this case, our consumer is our shopper. So as I mentioned before, sometimes it's more complicated. For the purposes of this example, let's make it simple. Our shopper is our consumer. So Ilya it is. And I'll explain to you a little bit how we then use this information to really understand how best to reach him. So maybe some of you have seen Baltika Smooth, Baltika 7 Smooth on air in communication. Maybe some of you haven't, but we had a great creative idea. Let's use Slipakov, who is a wonderful spokesperson and is relatable to our target audience. So he is in the right demographic. He's a little bit skeptical. He's a little bit comedian. And as our target doesn't like ads, perhaps if they see somebody they can relate to, like a celebrity, they can be a little bit more open-minded to our product. So we say, great. And Slipakov says, great, so let's do something together. And we create some great communication. On the other side, what I mentioned to you was the product benefits, right? Our beer is smooth. It's very easy drinking. And we find a great creative way to make that clear to our consumers. So we use the sky, we use clouds to really communicate how soft and pleasant the taste will be. So we have all these amazing, great creative ideas. And now what do we want to do? Well, we want as many Ilyas that we just talked about to know about our fantastic beer and we want him to buy it. We want him to try it. So let's talk about how we do that. Well, I always like to start off by talking about it's not really maybe a known golden rule, but since my advertising days, it's been something that follows me in a lot of my projects and a lot of my communication discussions. It's something I call the golden rule of 3Ms. So, as I mentioned before, it's not good enough to just plaster one message everywhere or to use only one channel to try to reach your audience to maximize your efficiency. What really helps is if you think about these 3Ms. So what is 3Ms? It's the right message at the right moment in the right media. So on the right-hand side, you see kind of a picture of all the different possibilities we have. So what we mentioned before, outdoor advertising, print advertising, which is probably becoming less and less relevant as we go more and more into digital advertising, and mobile advertising. And this is probably the most famous medium now that's quickly developing, and the job now is to understand how effectively to use that. And the trick is, and the skill is, you want to make sure that the combination of message, moment, and media is the right one. But across all of this, you really want a single-minded, consistent message that can be finessed to the audience with a carefully selected channel. So, you still want to have this multiplier effect. You don't want your consumer to see a message, Baltica 7 Smooth is new in stores. And then you want to see a message, in a completely different color, with a completely different tagline, something that's, not associated with the other. You really want to make sure that even if you tailor a little bit the wording or the call to action or even the visual, so in some cases, maybe it makes sense to utilize Slepakov. In some cases, maybe you really want to focus on the beautiful product in the glass, whichever it may be. But you want to make sure that all of that is part of one ecosystem. All of that is part of one world. This is really, really important, because then you really get the bang for your buck and you really start moving towards having this 360-degree campaign. So a lot of information here, but that's because we did a lot of work. And we said, okay, so what about Ilya? Where can we reach him so that we can start thinking about the right combination of media, message, and the moment? Well, on the left-hand side, you can see what Ilya consumes as far as media goes. Digital, of course, is extremely important, so we have to be there. As I mentioned before, it's not, maybe 15 years ago, it was enough to do one TVC ad for 10 seconds, put it on TV, and you've done your job. Absolutely not. The world has absolutely changed. And now digital is for sure one of the primary channels we use, of course, followed by TV, some kind of video formats, also probably online, social networks, and so on. We can see what kind of apps that he looks into. We can see, does he interact with bloggers? Does he trust them? Does he not? We can see the type of devices he's using. So whether it's mobile, whether it's desktop, that's also very important. So when you think about the right creative you want to put on this or that media, something that works really well in a cinema on a huge screen can be a complete disaster when you talk about a handheld mobile device, which is super small. So this is absolutely something you have to think through. And even vertical versus horizontal, extremely important. And all of this costs money. So you want to make sure that you have the exact right formats and media to choose from so that you don't overspend on trying to do everything, because that's just not possible with the realities of economics. And on the right-hand side, we also have some more information about his digital environment, so his search, What does he use his entertainment? Where does he get it from? His most important social networks, shopping. So, for example, our target audience is probably a little bit older than maybe some of the younger folks. So, TikTok here is not really front and center. So we can still reach him on some other channels as well. And then we start to think, okay, so now we know where he consumes media. Now let's think about this funnel of where we want to catch him and what do we want him to know, or what is the action we expect from him. So I think this is a myth buster to the third what it's not point that I mentioned at the beginning of the lecture, which was it is not a blitz, right? It needs to have phases. So we divide the phases of interaction with Ilya across 4 key phases. And here is really the beginning of the drafting of this 360 approach. The first phase we call prime. Prime is really the beginning. So yesterday, the product didn't exist on the market. Today, it exists. And so what do we want Ilya to do is to know about the fact that it exists. So in the beginning, we start to build some equity. We want him to start to become more and more open-minded because in his world, for the last, I don't know, some years since he started drinking beers, he has a consideration set of X amount of products, and now we're trying to get in there. So we tell him, hey, did you know there's something new from Baltika? It's Baltika 7 Smooth. We show him some campaign, and all of a sudden it starts to build up in his brain that, hey, there's a new product. Now we move to prompt. Prompt is all about consideration. So basically, think to yourself, when you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to go to the store, I need toothpaste, or I'm going to go to the store, I need some beers. Already probably in your mind, you have in most cases, up to 3-4 brands or products that you think, amongst them, I'll decide when I'm in the store which one I'm going to buy eventually. So what we're trying to do in this phase is to really get into that consideration set. It's not enough that he just knows about us. We want to make sure that we are somewhere top of mind, and as he will probably make his decision at shelf, we just want to make sure that he's already thinking about us as he goes into the store, and maybe even looks for us on shelf to see if we're already there. So here what's important for the product or for whatever it is you're trying to market is to give a very strong reason for why they should consider you for their next purchase. The third part of this funnel is the purchase itself. You know, in Switzerland, we learned very quickly that especially in retail, that a person comes in knowing that they want to buy a beer, but the actual decision of which beer that is, 60% of the time, really takes place in store. So they see, that's on sale. Okay, I'll take that one. Or, oh, that's an interesting display. That I'll take that one. Or, my beer is not on shelf. What should I take? And it's a much more spontaneous, much more unpredictable decision. So if you're there to influence it in the right way, perhaps you have a chance. And then, of course, once they try you, we move into the fourth phase, and that's called post-purchase. Basically, if they've tasted you and you didn't disappoint them on the taste itself, they liked the product, they thought it was good or even great in some cases, which is fantastic. You want to be able to drive that loyalty. So you want them to continue to buy you in the next purchase decisions they make. And of course, the best thing you can hope for in a consumer is their recommendation. So if this guy, Ilya, bought our beer, he tried it, and then he came to his friends and he said, guys, you really have to try this. It's a really fantastic beer. awesome. That means we're getting some recruitment into the brand. Or if he takes a picture with the beer, posts it online and says, hey guys, awesome beer, recommend, that this is really, we say money can't buy that. That's the best outcome you can hope for. So across these 4 stages, this is where you start to build your real 360 plan, fully understanding the media, the consumer that consumes that media, and of course the main messages you want to deliver at each stage of the process. So here, maybe a little bit busier than some of the other slides, but I wanted to give you a more detailed view on what that looked like for us, so that you can also have a bit of feeling that these stages are in fact different and how they can differentiate between themselves. So in the awareness prime stage, what we wanted to really communicate, what was our key message is, we have a new taste from Baltika. And the best way to make that message scaled and to make sure that everybody hears about it, of course, is TV and video content. So you want to make sure that people get some kind of emotion, feeling. Is it a product for them? Is it not a product for them? Very early on. And to make sure that at the bottom of the chart, you see media KPIs. What we focus on that in this phase is really audience reach as a percentage. So we know there's 20 million Ilias out there. We want to make sure that if it's not 100%, that it's a good 80-90% of Ilias that we make sure that will see our message. And then online, what's really important to us is view-through rate. So we want to make sure that we're not just posting content and, it's there, it's rolling, but nobody is really watching it. And especially now, I think it's very difficult in digital because you do have a lot of options to skip content. One big KPI we always track is the view-through rate. So has the person really sat through the video and watched it all? Then in the second stage, consideration, we put it into the context of a situation. We told you that Ilya likes to spend time with friends. That's where most of his beer consumption happens. Awesome. So here we'll tell him, listen, let's imagine that you can have this beer within that company. So all of a sudden you're putting him in one of these situations where he can see that this product makes sense. And here it's a lot more engagement that starts to take place. So of course you still want to have the reach. You still want as many Ilias as possible to understand that this is a product for them. But you also start to work on engagement. So you start to think about more social media. You start to think about special project, maybe content integration, meaning that you really start to put in context the message of friendship, the message of beer drinking moments. In the third stage, we're in the store. I mean, this whole thing really happens in the store. And here you have to remember you're not outside of clutter. So on TV, you can imagine that in a block of 1 hour, maybe you're the one TV ad about beer. So within that 1 hour, it's really just you, and you make him think about, hey, I'm thirsty. I want to have a beer. Why not Baltika 7 Smooth? But in the purchase stage, you have to imagine that you're in the store. The shelves today in Russia are quite complex. There's tons of choice. It's sometimes very disorganized, so it's extremely difficult to navigate where anything is. And you have a moment's time to really convince or to attract attention of your buyer to the product that you're selling and say, hey, try me. So here it's extremely important to focus on the product itself, on the functionality of the product, on the taste, to really make sure that their mouth is watering to try. And as far as channels that we use, it's product and pack, of course, because that's the one key thing that they see on the shelf. And of course, point of sale material. This is all the banners, the stickers, the different things that you see in the store. and any other in-store support. For example, for us, samplings work extremely well. So giving products out for free because maybe you're not willing to buy it yet. It still costs money. You're not sure if you like it. And in that case, here's a free product. You try it, and then hopefully we move you to the third stage automatically. And here as well, reach percent is extremely important in terms of shoppers in the market. Last phase is post-purchase. This is where we really want to create some buzz. We want to inspire conversations, especially if they're positive ones. If they don't like the beer, of course, that's a little bit of a different story, and that's very unfortunate. But if you see that there's positive conversations happening, there's recommendations happening, and usually this a lot of times happens in social media, you want to fuel it. You want to help it. So here, user-generated content is king. Hopefully, like I mentioned, there are some people that take pictures with some beers. And here, a lot of times, we'll also use influencers that also express a liking for our product. They can tell their communities about how wonderful that product is. And so we're really relying here on the word of mouth and tracking how that ecosystem develops by infusing ourselves as well into that conversation to make sure we drive this phase further. So what does that mean? What does that really look like here? I don't share with you everything, but just so you can see a bit how that could work in a very simplified manner. Here you can see that for the awareness part, as I mentioned before, great tool for that is TV and OLV. OLV is online videos. So here we had a great creative with Slipakov. If you haven't seen it, please search for it. We quite liked this communication. You will see it again, by the way, starting April, both on TV and digital. So if you didn't get a chance last year, you'll probably come across it this year as well. So that was our main focus. Then for the consideration, where we want to prompt consumers to think about our beer. This was also a lot of times in the store as well. Here the idea was really around taste and trial, which moves it to the third pillar as well. So somewhere between consideration and trial, there was a big effort made when you talk about the right moment or place. Was really around in-store or just outside of store, so that people think about our new great product when they come to the shelf. There was a big support also with what we call secondary placement, so big pallets with the product displayed, of course some special price discounts, so that especially in the first few purchases, they have a reason to buy. And last but not least, for the post-purchase, what we found out throughout this process was that the song that we use in the TV is extremely catchy. To be fair, we're all still singing it around the office still till this day. And so we got a lot of consumer feedback like, hey, I can't get the song out of my head. So we basically tried to stay a part of that conversation. So we gave away some Instagram masks to demonstrate that, hey, in my head, Slipakov is still playing. So this was a great way to kind of extend the campaign, make it a little bit more fun, young, and social media specific. And so, again, if you take it in a simpler way, here was our kind of 360 approach to make sure that we cover the entire funnel, that we have one consistent message, and that we're present in the right places during the decision-making process. So, coming back to our original start, right? We said, what is 360 marketing? And I said, well, let's at least agree what it's not. And I'll just remind what we said. We said that it's not about being everywhere with the same message at the same time. It's not about utilizing all channels available to you. And it's not about a one-time blitz with a large spend. So I just wanted to spend a few closing moments discussing with you what is it, in fact. And hopefully you also saw that from the materials that I shared. So what it is about using the right media at the right moment. So I think my presentation is not translating as I can see. But hopefully you can see it. Let me just ask IT. Oh, okay. So I think everything is fine. So I just wanted to finish on the last part. So I told you what it's not. And so I wanted to tell you what it is. So what is it? It's about using the right media at the right moment with the right message, building a complete ecosystem. And that's what hopefully I have demonstrated to you. So it's not about being everywhere at the same time. You really have to get inside your target audience's head, understand where they are, and make sure that you focus on the right messages at the right moment. And then what it is about as well is utilizing the channels that are most relevant to your target audience. So, for example, with Ilya, we saw that digital was very important. We saw that he still watches TV. We saw that he doesn't trust advertising. So all of these things really fed into what we did with our campaign for the right audience. And then lastly, what it is as well is about effective spend across several phases. So as I mentioned, there is prime, prompt, purchase, and post-purchase phase, which is what you should keep in mind. So it's not about a blitz. You're on air, people see you, and then you're done. It's really important that across this funnel, you have the right tools. Okay, so for me, that's it. Hopefully, you have asked some questions. I will take a look, and we have a couple of minutes to discuss them.
Включаю микрофон здесь.
Let me just check the right tools. Okay, so for me, that's it. Hopefully, you have asked some questions. I will take a look, and we have a couple of minutes to discuss them. I can ask my question. Sorry, IT, I can hear myself in the chat. Let me just check the right tools. Okay, so for me, that's it. Hopefully, you have asked some
Let me just
questions.
check. Sorry for the delay.
Take a look,
And I have quite a delay in my, and I can hear myself, but I will try to answer all the questions. So
Sorry,
what is the main
I
difference
can
in the
hear
approach to
myself,
promoting products in the USA,
chat.
Europe, and Russia? I would say that there's a lot of differences, I think, between, but there's some things that are very similar.
What is similar, of course, is the toolkit that is used. Sorry for the delay.
And I have quite a delay in my, and I can hear myself, but I will try to answer all the questions. So what is the main difference in the approach to promoting products in the USA, Europe, and Russia? I would say that there's a lot of differences, I think, between, but there's
you know what? I propose that I'm so sorry for this. I will answer in the chat because I can really. Sorry, I can hear. So I will type my answers into the chat.
So what is the main difference in the approach?
Or I'm asked to ask for a minute.
In Russia, I would say that there's a lot of differences, I think, between, but there's
you know what? I propose that I'm so sorry for this. I will answer in the chat because I can really.
Sorry, I can hear.
So I will type my answers into the chat.
So what is the main difference in the approach?
Or I'm asked to ask for a minute.
In Russia, I would say that there's a lot of differences, I think, between, but there's
you know what? I propose that I'm so sorry for this. I will answer in the chat because I can really.
Sorry, I can hear.
So I will type my answers into the chat.
So what is the main difference in the approach?
Or I'm asked to ask for a minute.
In Russia, I would say that there's a lot of differences, I think, between, but there's
you know what? I propose that I'm so sorry for this. I will answer in the Can you hear me? I'm asked to say something. Okay, great. So apparently you can hear me. I'm so sorry for that. There was some technical problems. So I will answer the questions here. Hopefully you can hear me. So the first question is going back. What is the main difference in the approach to promoting products in the USA, Europe, and Russia? Well, first of all, I would say in Russia, there's quite more restrictions around what you can and cannot do. I think, if I compare Switzerland, it's a completely open market. So you can do whatever you want, especially in the beer industry. But if you talk about in general, I think marketing is quite similar from place to place. I think in the US, it's a lot more probably daring. You see a lot more customized approaches. You see some really funky stuff sometimes in stores. I think it's a bit more risk-taking, a bit louder, if that makes sense. But I think the culture is like that. Whereas I think in Europe and as well in Russia, it's a bit more muted. Even though I'm impressed in Russia as well, you can see some interesting things in stores as well. But I think the approach itself is quite similar. So I think, for example, if you take what I've shown you now and apply it whatever country you are, I think it's going to be relevant. Again, it comes down to rules, regulations of the place where you are working, and also, of course, the consumer you're targeting. So depending on who you're trying to reach, maybe your toolkit will change. What are the most successful tools? What does the audience react to? Well, this is probably a tough question. If we knew the golden answer to that, then I think all of our products would be a success, and that's unfortunately not the case. We've had some failures for sure along the way, and in some cases it's more failures than successes, depending on the industry. But I think what are successful tools, to be honest? I think it's not tools that you use on the audience itself, it's the tools you use to understand it. So, for example, Mягкая, good example. It was a year in the making. I mean, everything from doing consumer testing, understanding what they want, what motivates them to buy, how they react to the concept itself, giving them the product to try. Do they like it? Do they not like it? I think the tools of research are probably the most valuable ones, but you have to make sure you're using them properly. In some cases, you can have a misuse of these tools of the research, because let's say you make some wrong assumptions, or you make some wrong assumptions or decisions based on the research. But if used properly, I think research is your best tool, because then hopefully you have 80% of the of what it will take to make sure the audience reacts to in a positive way. What are the possible ways to quantify the post-purchase word of mouth effect? That's a very good question. What we normally do is we have tracking tools with our media agency. So we track online and digital any conversation that's happening around our product. So you basically set some keywords and you see who is talking about your product and in what way. So by doing that, we can see how many reactions are positive, how many are negative. And then, of course, we can also see what has been transferred or shared or reliked or whatever it is. So actually, with our media agencies, we have extremely sophisticated tools. As long as you put in the right inputs on what it is you want to measure. And then, of course, a lot of times we ourselves will put in what we call, viral content. And that will, of course, have some tracking in. And we see how far it spreads, how wide it goes. And in some cases it doesn't. But there are certainly things like that you can track. Of course, a person recommending something to a friend, that's very difficult to track. You can only see that in your sales effect later on. What is the approach of promoting non-alcoholic beer? That's an extremely big topic, which I can spend another 1 hour session on. I don't think the tools or the approach is any different than with regular beer. So I think it's very similar, except that non-alcoholic beer gives you a lot more wider opportunities with regards to communication, especially in dark markets, and also probably occasions. So non-alcoholic beer lives more in the, let's say, CSDs, depending on how you position it. It lives more maybe in water as a potential competitor. So, just your market itself is a bit different in how you compete and the freedom you have to advertise. But I think a lot of the promoting tools are quite similar. That's a very nice question. Yes, to the company, maybe my colleagues can answer. So if you're interested in the company or in the brand Baltika in general, of course, there's ways to get in touch with us. I will let my colleagues maybe answer that and give you some information on if you're interested, what you could do to follow up on that. Okay, I think that's all. I wish you all a great day, a little bit over time, but hopefully this was useful, that you liked it, and I wish you a very, very nice day. Thank you very much.